I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Harrington.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Musgrave. Brandon.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Here.
Kyer.
Here.
Delaney.
Here. We have a quorum. I have a note asking for Ms. Musgrave to please be excused. I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Perkins, second by Brandon to excuse Miss Musgrave. Miss Bigger, roll call, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 1, consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. What is the pleasure of council?
Can we pull number 4, please?
Number 4 on consent agenda then becomes number 12 on regular agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Perkins, support by Kyer to approve the consent agenda as amended. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Public comment. Members of the public may address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for items not on the agenda. Council may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by majority vote. For items on the agenda, comments may be made after council discussion prior to council vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public will please state their name and address for the record. Is there anyone for public comment? Yes, Ms. Davidson.
Marlo Davidson, 434 Shirley Court. I was up here to ask a selfish suggestion. I've been parking on this side, outside the door, ever since I had some issues with balance. I have a handicap sticker. For years, nobody parked there. It seems like since I've been parking there with my handicap sticker, it's become a favorite place to park, and I would like to be sure that I have a place to park, and I'm suggesting that we put a handicap, at least one, on that side drive. Also, handicap locations downtown on Saginaw are only painted on the pavement. There are no signs. Come winter, there's no place to park. People don't come from out of town, don't know that it's a handicap place. So I'd like something done about that. Address that. That's another suggestion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Murphy?
Josh Murphy, 103 Battle Alley. I wanted to make a public apology to DPW and Brian Clausen. I made a public comment that didn't come off exactly the way I wanted it to. And those guys are awesome. Yeah, so that was,
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Watt?
I miss all the good stuff.
I know.
Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street, number 3. I just wanted to say thank you and point out, yesterday some people knew because it was on the forum, the Facebook forum, some people did not. A citizen posted in there and then had texted me about the graffiti that was abysmal at Lakeside Park yesterday, and within 10 minutes it was gone. I reached out to Village Manager Walker and Chief Narsh, and one of the police officers went over and was able to remove it, and I can only thank you as a citizen and for any other citizen that was offended by that grossness, and also that our children did not have to see that another second longer. So I just want to say thank you for your swift action to that. Thank you.
Very well done there. Thank you. Ms. Barnes?
Good evening, Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. The other evening, I was in Battle Alley at Ziggy's, no judgments, second time this week, and across from the street at the vault, there's a fire extinguisher, or an ashtray, and Nick Clint was there with me when he noticed that it was smoldering. So he went and he tried to put it out, did his best. And it was so packed that it ended up, the fire department had to come down and put it out a little while later. We don't have enough places for people to be able to put out their cigarettes downtown. We have a ton of people that are coming in there for commerce. As we get into the summer months, it's going to be even busier. We've got that one little ashtray outside the vault that we're expecting everybody to pack into. And where are they going to end up otherwise? They're going to end up on the street. They're going to end up in the trash. We already had a fire downtown. I don't understand why we're not investing in some ashtrays that can be placed dispersed through our downtown area at the very least to protect that area, so that we can make sure people have a visible place to put their cigarette butts, and so that we can also protect our assets that are down there. It just seems like kind of a no-brainer here. So I didn't know if you guys were aware that it had gotten to the point that the fire department actually had to come down and put it out, but they did. I think that that's important, and I would really like this to be the last time that we have to use public resources to come put out an ashtray. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just noticed that I see Director Clausen taking notes over there, so thank you, sir. Mr. Barnes.
Hello, Keith Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. As you all know, the weather's getting nicer. I go for walks nightly, usually through town, and getting my bike out. Those bike lanes are looking pretty hazardous. They're full of dirt and debris. At least half of the lanes are filled, so it's pretty dangerous for anybody that wants to ride their bike in the bike lane. So I know we talked about getting a street sweeper. I don't know if there's something we can do, get the street sweeper run through there to clean them out, but I think it's that time of year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else for public comment? Yes, Mr. Scheel.
Yes, Ryan Scheel, 320 LeGrand Street, Holly, Michigan. A couple things. It's been brought up a few times to put Ms. Mattson on a committee, and I highly recommend that you do so. She's very well qualified for a position in whatever she desires. She would be a huge asset to this community in whatever position she is willing to do. And to piggyback on Mr. Barnes, I do believe that the DPW is awesome in what they do in our community. I also would like to see the street sweeper brought out in various areas throughout the community that I do believe need to be street swept throughout the village and whatnot, because it's getting a little dirty. There's certain areas as we all probably know, from leaves to debris to what have you. So I guess that's about it.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else for public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, we will move on. There is no old business. Members of council and of the public may note that new business number 1 is crossed out. That was simply because I wanted a little bit more time to consider that appointment to the ZBA, as that suggestion came to me quite late, quite close to the meeting, and that's really all. So we will proceed to new business number 2, consideration of the approval of resolution 2023-018, confirming the village president's appointment of Tina Hembry to the Village of Holly Downtown Development Board. Mr. Walker, did you want to introduce this agenda item?
Sure. I think you did a pretty good job, though. So there is a vacancy on the DDA board. Pursuant to the charter, it is the village president's prerogative to make recommendation to the council. For that, his recommendation is Ms. Hembry, who's of Backroads Group.
I would entertain a motion before we proceed to council deliberation and then public comment.
I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2023-018, confirming the President's appointment of Tina Embry to the Village of Holly Downtown Development Board.
I'll second.
Motion by Brandon, second by Perkins. Is there any council discussion desired?
Nope, that'll be our only business in the north end, right?
It will, yeah,
It's needed.
absolutely.
I have a little something to say, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I've visited Tina Embry's establishment a few times, and here's what I know from what I've seen. She's reliable and hardworking. And here's what I know as a former bartender. She can handle an unruly and belligerent crowd, which seems to matter in local government. She won't back down, and she'll do what's right. Her staff, her subcontractors, and her patrons speak well of her. She also represents 2 underrepresented portions of Holly businesses, being the North End and a corner bar. And here's why she should be considered. She's a mom and pop shop. She's owned and operated a business in Holly for 8 years. She's competent, as evidenced by the history she outlined in her application, which includes project management experience and a demonstration of charitable fundraising planning and effectiveness. She's a knowledgeable employer, a savvy businesswoman. She's invested in this village, and I think utilizing her offer to serve on the DDA is going to benefit Holly.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Or, excuse me, council discussion on that? Yeah, and I would add, too, that I am very confident in Ms. Hembry's ability and willingness to attend meetings and participate. As long as I've been on the DDA board in my capacity as president, which is 6 months now, I've never been to a single meeting where we've had an actual full board present at the meetings. And so I think that ability and willingness to be present, participate, to deliberate on decisions that affect our downtown is very important. And I have every confidence in Ms. Hembry to fulfill that obligation. Yeah. Any other council discussion before we move on to public comment? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there anyone for public comment on this agenda item? Yes, Ms. Ray.
Cassandra Ray, 121 North Corbin. I wholeheartedly believe that Tina Hombre will make a great addition to the DDA. She's a business-oriented and development-driven individual. Despite the many setbacks that Backroads Bar and Grill face with location and landlord issues, she and her husband Gary have managed to turn Backroads into a successful business. They have created a safe and welcoming environment for both the regulars and those just passing through. I feel that by adding Tina Hombre, a North End business owner, to the DDA, it will expand events and opportunities for businesses outside of the downtown area. As of now, most of those seated on the DDA are downtown business owners, meaning events and opportunities are generally geared at bringing traffic to those downtown shops. However, the Village of Holly encompasses a much larger territory that's often forgot about, Midtown and North End. That being said, Tina Hombre's influence with other North End establishments will open the doors for involvement of more Village of Holly businesses.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Bob Hoffman, Chairman of the DDA. I don't have a position for or against this candidate. I'm sure she'd do quite well in her position. I've only met her a couple times. One time when COVID was on and we helped her a little bit through funding from the county, as we did for a lot of business, to help them get through that. My only concern is, and Ryan and I have talked about this before, is that there were other people interested in this position, but only one person was interviewed. And I think going forward, and you do have the prerogative and the right to appoint who you want, but if we're going to be open, honest, and transparent, I think you have to vet all the people that come forward. And there were two others I know of, and they were not even interviewed.
Thank you very much, sir. And while acknowledging that public comment is not a dialogue, I would just like to say that I did also speak with the other candidate, who I thought was a delightful lady and very well qualified, and I'm very interested in keeping her in mind for a future appointment. Anyone else for public comment? Ms. Watt, yes.
Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street, Apartment 3. I just did want to say, as someone, many of you know, I had a business and we closed in January. The economy, we're all feeling it. Every business owner in this town is feeling it. We're having to make necessary changes, and we had to make the difficult decision to close our business. One thing that I strive to do when we opened, especially being next door at that time to Maruka's Kitchen and people loving tacos, and really starting to remember that strip mall existed, is I spoke to so many businesses in the Midtown, that own there, and as well in the North End. And this has always been an issue, is not having representation down there. And I love seeing that the food truck rally is now like in Holly Foods parking lot. They've cleaned that place up. But many people in our community don't even realize that the DDA district ends at Backroads Bar and Grill. Like, they think of it because it's called the Downtown Development Authority, that it's about the downtown. And I can't even imagine that not a collective millions of dollars have been spent to clean up and bring up into the 21st century our businesses on that end of town, where many of our township residents shop, and many people who live in Fenton passing through and Grand Blanc come that way. And those people deserve as much attention and input to our community, because they're serving the 6,000 people out in our township, mostly, who would otherwise take their dollars outside of Holly. So I'm really excited to see really any brick and mortar business on the North End represented in the DDA. It's so important. And I was proud to help during my time as a business owner cross promote with those folks and get to know kind of the culture down on the North End, and as we've added the Taco Bell, of course, everyone, now all of a sudden everybody's going to the North End to go get Taco Bell. So I had the opportunity to meet Tina and Gary a couple months ago, and I typically don't go to bar and grills very often, other than Andy's. I miss their chicken wings desperately. But I was invited to go for karaoke, and I went, and I couldn't believe the amount of diverse clientele that congregate there together and treat each other with respect, and the way that they treat their patrons as well. And I've seen it grow in 2 months of just, you know, going and singing one night a week. So I'm very impressed with them, and I'm happy to see that she applied and so forth. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Mr. Shield.
Yeah, Ryan Shield, 320 LeGrand Street, Holly, Michigan. I'm just going to say that Tina is an excellent candidate for the position. She is one of the most even and fair people that I've ever known. She will do the job exquisitely and fairly. She will vote her conscience. She will do things extraordinarily well. And she is one of the sweetest, kindest, fair ladies that I've ever met in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, miss.
Hillary Allgaier, 121 Alley Street, and I came to speak for Tina. She is great. I've coordinated volunteers for the DDA for several years, and I'm really excited that we finally have a business owner from the North End that actively wants to get involved. So hopefully we can unify our DDA district. Tina's not one to toot her own horn, but she's actively been involved in developing our community for quite some time now. From buying heaters and tents to give people a venue to socially distance during the COVID shutdown. She's really stepped up since the fire downtown, including a monumental fundraiser that's a standalone private fundraiser for the Moose. At Christmas time, she did a toy drive. She linked up with the CPS social workers, and they got so many toys they had to get another truck because she does really great things for the community. She sends care packages to soldiers deployed, does canned food drives, and she's the only venue with consistent live entertainment since the fire downtown. And she's great, and I think she would be a great addition to our DDA board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Mr. Mattson.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, no problem.
Brian Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. I don't know Tina. She sounds wonderful based off of what everyone has said. I just have more or less some concerns amongst the process. What I am handing out, though, currently is an active listing, is Backroads Bar and Grill for sale. I don't know if that could be spoken to or what, but from my understanding, having been offered to be on the DDA board, you have to have an active business or real estate in the DDA district. So if this business were to sell and she doesn't have a business in the district, that would then disqualify her from being on the board. There was a criticism amongst the DDA yesterday by Mr. Delaney that there was a lack of urgency or speed in which of getting the spot filled. So to fill it with someone who may be selling their business and has to become vacant just seems counterintuitive to filling the role. Multiple candidates had participation forms on file for this. I know two of them. One specifically I've done real estate transactions with as a customer of the selling side. She's a long-standing citizen of the area, and she's absolutely fabulous, and I think at least deserved the respect of an interview that Mr. Delaney said did not happen as of yesterday. So if he had that phone conversation, it was a courtesy today, which is nice, but there was no other candidates spoken to about filling the role. These spots, these seats are very important. The DDA is in charge of a lot of funds. Again, not that Tina is not a very qualified candidate. There's been a lot of wonderful things said about her, and I don't doubt those for 1 second. But just in the spirit of getting all those who are interested in the best candidate and involving our entire community, I really feel as though we should be actively pursuing and reaching out to all those that are interested and really asking good, solid questions, rather than, by all appearances, just appointing friends or pals. Because it just doesn't, I don't know, just doesn't look good, so to speak. But yeah, I just hope that consistency would continue, because we have a vetting process for planning parks, but the DDA was not afforded that opportunity to meet or speak with those candidates and put a suggestion forward as to who fits the needs based off of the things they're going after to put the right person in place. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else for public comment? Ms. Hembry.
Backroads Bar and Grill is not for sale. We entertained that back in 2019, 2020. Of course, during COVID times, when it got tough, we went back and forth with it. That listing has been up. We've requested it for that listing to be taken down. We actually had somebody come into our bar 6 months ago, maybe, wanting to purchase the bar. We declined. So we're not for sale.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Yes, Miss Everly.
I'm Sherilyn Everly from 314 Hadley Street, and I just really want to speak to this whole vetting process, which never existed until Mr. Delaney was elected president of our village. And as far as the vetting system, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I've compared notes with people who've been interviewed for the same position, and we weren't even asked the same questions. So if you're not going to have a system that says, these are the 5 questions we ask these candidates for these positions, and we're going to evaluate them on the same way, then you don't have a system. And they're not doing anything different administratively than what you're being accused of. They want to pick people that are going to match what their goals are. Supposedly you're picking people who match what your goals are, but it should be the goals of the community. And when you got this many people showing up for Miss Tina Embry, who I have never met, damn it, give her the position, and why are we messing around? I mean, you're really on very unsolid territory when you talk about this vetting. Because as I say, I have been involved in a lot of hiring processes, and if you don't handle each individual candidate the same, you're just bullshitting everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Ms. Barnes.
Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I do think it's important to note that there were 7 weeks to fill this position, 7 weeks to interview, 7 weeks of time to be able to get a hold of Ms. Hembry if Mr. Hoffman felt that that was important enough to interview these candidates yourself. You could have appointed somebody last month. That was under your purview. You could have appointed anybody that you wanted to. You chose to wait and give people time to get their application in. You just stated to us that you did call the other candidate who had submitted their application, and that you chose that Ms. Hembry would be the better choice for you. In a small town like this, a lot of us often end up knowing each other. That doesn't mean that we're all buddy-buddy. And this idea that just because we happen to have lives that are somehow interconnected in different ways means that there's some kind of special treatment that's happening because somebody comes up and accuses that, doesn't mean it's true. So I think that we just need to take a step back and look at the facts that are before us, the bipartisanship of support for Ms. Hembry, the facts of her business, what she stated, and what our community needs, and go from there. And as far as the vetting and how Mr. Delaney's appointments are going to be handled versus how it's been handled previously, I applaud the fact that you're trying to change the system to make it more transparent. I think the fact that you're held under a microscope every single time is a little bit of crap. Like, you've been in office for 6 months, and you are far more engaged and transparent in any appointments than I've seen previously, and I've been here for 15 years. So maybe somebody who has some history would know that, but people who are newer may not be aware that this is quite a bit more transparent than we've ever had, and you are doing the best that you can. So I applaud this council for the efforts that they've been doing. Thank you very much for trying to find the best candidates for us. We need it.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item?
If the audience is done, I had a public comment submitted to me from Sean Grugel, but I'd like to, before I ask you to accept my unusual public comment from here, make sure everyone out there is done first.
Sure. Is there any further public comment desired?
Okay, I'm going to put the timer on myself. Hi, I'm Sean Grugel. Hey, I'm on a timer. Let's talk about DDA, Downtown Development Authority. In that title, there is a very important word, development. I have watched Backroads grow from neighborhood dive bar to the place to be, where families go for dinner, where friends gather for drinks, where groups go for entertainment. I was there when there were 5 people to what it is now. Some weekends it is standing room only. Not only have Gary and Tina grown their business, despite the landlord's lack of improvement to the building, but I have watched them develop people. I have watched cooks grow, bar staff grow, bands grow, like Six Shot Whiskey and Justin Rose. I have watched patrons grow from personal experience since they brought in Cassandra Ray to host karaoke. I have watched my wife Sharon grow from a shy wallflower to the first one up on stage on karaoke night. Tina and Gary are 2 pillars in our community and truly define the word development. They are 2 of the most hardworking, loving, respectful people I have ever personally met, despite the obstacles from landlords, limited visibility, etc. they have faced, that they have been able to develop Backroads into a viable business and a go-to destination for its citizens. Development is what is asked for, and I believe Tina can provide a pathway to it within the DDA. Good luck, Tina.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and support to appoint Tina Hembry to the Village of Holly DDA Board. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Heyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. Hembry. Item number 3 under new business. Special event, Holly Moose Grand Opening and Ribbon Cutting.
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Walker.
you, Mr. President and Council. So this event is in your new business section only because it was submitted outside of the 60-day window. If it had been submitted 60 days prior to this meeting, it would be in consent. But I think it's noteworthy that it is in new business. This is a big event for the community. The Moose, of course, was one of the 7 or 8 businesses damaged during the downtown fire on June 21st of last year. So we're happy to have them reopening. They're happy to be reopening. So the date of April the 27th is the date of their ribbon cutting and also their opening. And then again on the 30th, they will be having a grand opening to the public. Mr. Kinnaman, when he puts on his other hat, as chamber director, is coordinating the ribbon cutting. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, perhaps the time. Oh, after you look at your
Text
calendar.
just received tonight. The ribbon cutting on the 27th will be at 11 a.m. And at that point, from what I understand, that will be, the Moose will be open for members. Remember, you have to be current on your membership and have either your card or your app in order to scan to get in to the building. Gives a couple of days for members to enjoy things, and then on Saturday, the 29th is when they're going to invite the public, from what I understand, to come and see what they've done, and kind of enjoy that as well. So, and most of this is for, I believe, the 29th.
So I think perhaps when they fill out this form, they intend for the entire weekend to be a grand opening celebration. But the 27th, as you stated, is the ribbon cutting. The 29th, I think, is the intended day
Right.
for public view.
Public event.
But they're going to be open on the 30th also.
And part of the reason for this application is that they are considering some tents in the parking spaces in front, and maybe do some entertainment and stuff. They're still toying with whether that will take place in the front or whether it will take place in the back, but they do need it approved in case they are going with the front. So that's the big purpose for this. I would make the motion to approve this item.
I would second that.
Motion by Kinnaman, support by Kyer, to approve the Holly Moose grand opening and ribbon cutting. Is there any further council discussion desired on this item? Is there any public comment desired on this item?
Cut and dry.
Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries.
And if I may make just one slight comment with that, this is the first public announcement of this event, so.
Very good.
Yay.
Item number 4 under new business, special event, Holly Farmers Market Sundays. And I may note that item number 5 is special event, Holly Farmers Market Tuesdays. So maybe we can consider these together, Mr. Walker?
Certainly the council's choice whether they want to consider them together or not. The market on Sundays, as you know, over the last couple of years has grown tremendously. Ms. Reagan has done a fantastic job along with her vendors, upwards of 70 vendors each Sunday with 900 or more participants or shoppers at that event. And so that is event new business item number 4. Number 5 is she had continued requests almost every week from persons attending or persons unable to attend and contacting her, asking if there could not be a market open during the week. They're not able to make it on Sunday, but they would like to take advantage of the market during the week. And so she contacted her vendors, and while she did not get as many vendors that said that they could be available on Sunday, she does feel she'll have up to 50 vendors. So the vendors will be less. It'll be a smaller event. It will be less persons estimated attending the market, almost in half. And so, that will ease the burden a bit on the parking during the week. But even the event times on the Sunday market are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The event times for the Tuesday market are 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. And really many of the businesses downtown, the restaurants start closing at 4 o'clock, the downtown restaurants with the exception of Blackthorn and the Moose once they're doing food. And most of the stores close at 5 o'clock. So certainly if council wished to combine both of those, you could, or you could separate them.
In regards to Tuesday, being that it'll be a smaller event, it shouldn't impact traffic, rush hour, school buses, and all of that too much then?
I don't believe so.
I'd like to make a motion to approve new business 4 and 5.
Second.
Yes.
Motion by Brandon, support by Kinnaman. Is there any further council discussion desired on this item?
No, I think it's a good idea to have a Tuesday market.
Is there any public comment desired on this item? Yes, miss.
Hillary Allgaier, 121 Alley Street. So I live downtown, and I love downtown. I love the events. I love everything about downtown except for the parking. There's a huge parking shortage for the residents and employees of the businesses as it is. And I mean, as much as I love the events, I also love coming home from work and being able to go home and cook my dinner and move on with my evening life, you know. And so I contend with the car show on Wednesdays, but at least when there's the car show on Wednesdays, I can park at Crapo and go home and make my dinner and live my life like, you know, everybody just wants to go home from work. So now it's going to be contending with nowhere to park on Tuesday, nowhere to park on Wednesday, and then they're going to be doing music in the alley on Thursdays. So now 3 of my 5 work days, I can't go home and make my dinner. And so I'd like to know where the residents' needs and desires fall into all of this planning. Because it's, like I said, you know, Wednesdays, that's a given. I know I can't go home on Wednesdays. Okay, that's fine. Worst case, I can park at Crapo. I can go over to a friend's house. But to have to figure out 3 days a week because I can't get home or anywhere close to home because of all of the events, it's kind of not fair, is all. And also, I don't think that it's fair to the 2 local farmers that we have that sell produce 7 days a week. The people that come down for the farmers market, they don't tend to shop at the businesses, and I know this because I've worked at several of the businesses downtown, and I am friends with owners of the businesses, and we talk regularly. And I personally, I mean, I've been to the farmers market in Fenton. That's a weeknight. That's the only day of the week that they have their farmers market, though. And when you go, there's art exhibits, and there's artists, and there's musicians, and it's kind of like a festival kind of a vibe that makes it a draw to go to something like that on a weekday. For me, I'm like super not excited about the whole thing because it's just another day that it's gonna be, and then with it being set up in Crapo, my overflow parking, I mean, and I'm speaking as a resident downtown. There are a lot of residents that live downtown, so it's not going to only impact me. It's going to impact everybody that lives downtown. And so I would like that to be maybe taken into consideration, or maybe you guys could make us a parking lot that we can park in so that we can have, you know, I mean, you know how it is. You get off work, you want to go home. You want to, and I want to be able to do that too. So I am not in favor of the Tuesday farmers market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item? Yes, Ms. Mattson.
Anna Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. I go to almost every farmer's market. I probably only miss 2 when it's in the summer. A lot of vendors drive over an hour to come to the farmer's market. So my fear is that we're going to put some of the population on Tuesday, and it's not going to be worth the drive for a lot of these vendors on Sunday. And with me going every Sunday, I've never not had a parking spot. And there's never been where it's too crazy at the farmer's market that I've said to myself, oh man, I wish it was spread across 2 days. I've never said that. It's a very good crowd, and it's typically busy maybe 1 hour. It's really heightened, but the rest of the hours, it's pretty, like, I take my dogs, like, they're fine. They can walk around and everything. So I just fear that it's actually going to hurt the farmer's market spreading it across 2 days because vendors are going to start to drop off because it's not worth their while. So if you do approve Tuesday, I would recommend, my research side of me says maybe let's do this on a trial basis, maybe approve it for a month. And then at the next council meeting, or probably 2 at this point when they actually start, see how that month went and see if you want to keep it all summer. So that's my advice. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Wallace.
Angela Wallace, 709 Baird Street. Where the farmer's market is right now is in Kari's old building. I understand that in the summertime we move it to Crapo Park. Nobody's cared if there's parking in front of my house. I have continued to complain because we get people across my driveway, people on my lawn, people everywhere, and we're told that's just part of what it is. Having a farmer's market on Tuesday allows those people who do go to church, who do have other things to do on Tuesday, to be able to visit a farmer's market, to be able to shop from the farmer's market. Whereas right now, those are decisions that we, farmer's market, church, there's not really a question there of what I'm going to be doing. But I don't like coming home and having cars parked across my driveway. We have always said, well, call cops, that'll be something. So if we're saying there's no parking, that's just an area that we have. It's an issue that we have in our downtown, no parking. But we're consistently giving private residents your 2 parking spots. Our electric vehicles, their 2 parking spots here, there are 2 parking spots over there, there's 2 parking spots here. We've always used our overflow parking when we have a downtown event at the Presbyterian Church or at some of the other churches on the roads. There's plenty of parking down there. Maybe not overnight, but that's just something that comes with the territory of having a farmer's market. So I'm totally in favor of having it on a Tuesday and taking some of that draw off of Sunday, because you can't park anywhere around there on Sundays to get down there. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Barnes, yes.
Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. So I see both sides of this. I've actually been a vendor at a lot of farmers markets when I used to do them, and I totally see what Ms. Mattson is talking about. Traffic is a huge, huge, huge issue a lot of times for these vendors, and when they get a good traffic event, it is imperative to them that they keep that traffic. They budget it into their finances. Like, they know from last year I was able to make this much, and then they gauge. And when we do something like this and we change it, we may be changing people's livelihood, and we need to think about that. So I don't think that her idea of a trial period is a bad idea. I think that it is important that we try to offer as much as we can to all of our citizens. We do have people that want access to the farmers market during the week, and they can't get there on the weekend. They should possibly have access if we can accommodate them. But also, our residents should maybe have a place that's designated just for them, that we block off and we say this is only resident parking or something like that. Like, we have to start doing some workshop things to be able to help to make sure that people's voices are heard and we're coming up with creative solutions in such a small area so that we can still provide all of this. Because you've got some great ideas out here. It's just making sure that you fit it in there and don't just rubber stamp these ideas through, right? And then we end up with problems later that we can't fix. So that's just my thought on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Yes, Mr. McGaugh.
Larry McGaugh, 213 Washington Street. We have huge parking lot on the north end that on weekdays is not all that busy, and that would be a lot better place to have all these outsiders come and park rather than downtown where they get in the way of residential areas. That's my thought.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? We do have a motion and support on this item. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Kyer.
I'm going to hesitantly say yes because I have listened to all your complaints and I understand them and you bring up good points, but at this moment I'm going to vote yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
No.
Kinnaman.
I wish these were separated
Fair.
at this point, because I'd like us to review that other options for Tuesday. But because they're linked, I'm going to have to, well, I'm going to say no.
Delaney.
If you say no, we can bring it back up and work on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I too hear a lot of what our downtown residents are saying, and just for the purpose of being able to bring it up again, I'm going to vote no. Motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion to approve new business number 4.
I believe that is in order, is it not?
It's an appropriate motion. It's different than the motion that was made, so. I agree.
Yeah, very good.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have motion and support to approve item number 4, special event Holly Farmers Market on Sundays. Any council discussion desired on that? Hearing none, seeing none. Any public comment desired on that? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 6. Yeah.
We can address number 5.
Oh.
Yes.
Also, I think is appropriate. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Item number 5, special event Holly Farmers Market Tuesdays.
Could we request, or could someone speak with Diana, if that's appropriate, Diana Regan, to maybe consider Larry McGaw's idea about utilizing different parking somewhere, or to consider shuttle or some kind of something?
I think because it is a special event request, I think that would be the most appropriate, because I don't think it's particularly appropriate to alter a request made for a special event on the requester's behalf in a motion. You understand? Do we understand that?
So if you take no action on this item, then it will die. And then staff, I've spoken with Ms. Reagan several times on these issues. And just to get back, it's unfortunate that she was not able to be with us tonight, but her feeling on the Tuesday event was if it did affect the Sunday business, that would cause her to rethink. So in essence, that is a probationary period. I think in these type of issues, without advocating for it, I think in these type of issues, the market will correct itself. If it's not working, she's not going to do it. If it's going to affect the Sunday market, which has been so wildly successful, she's not going to do it.
Yeah. In other words, if we approve, item number 5, because of her request, we are obligated to honor it, but she is not.
No, that's correct. Yeah. If it's not working, believe me, she'll stop it, because she puts in a lot of time and effort into this, as do her vendors. In relation to the parking issue, again, just remember, while parking is an issue in recent years downtown because of the success of the downtown, there really is sufficient parking down there. It's management of that parking, which is the issue. It's not that there's not enough spots. There are enough spots. It's just not used correctly. Now, the police chief is working on a parking plan that he will roll out through the DDA this spring and early summer sometime, which will help. But also remember, like we talked about, the restaurants close at 4 o'clock downtown. So those spots are going to be vacated. The businesses close at 5 o'clock downtown. And so those spaces will be vacated. So I just offer that up for your consideration. You can certainly do whatever you'd like. If you want it to die and offer Ms. Reagan the opportunity to consider another location, I think she has considered other locations, up to and including Cyclone Park, which is close to where she currently runs the market. She runs it at 111 College. And so she has considered that, but she, in her estimation, the most likelihood of highest success is to have it in the exact same location in the downtown area where people are familiar with. So I just offer that all up, and council, you can, as always, do whatever you
We can
like.
always put it contingent upon a review, like at the June meeting.
That's what I was gonna say, can we table it?
Well, you postpone a decision. Table means it gets picked up in the same meeting.
Yeah.
But not really to postpone it, but approve it upon a contingency for review for continuation at the June meeting.
So maybe approve for a 60-day period of time so it can be further evaluated?
Something like
That's an
that.
option.
So is it the DDA or the business owner's responsibility to handle resident parking? Or anyone's?
So it is, right now, it is the resident's responsibility to find parking. There are certain spots that are designated overnight parking, but there are not specific spots designated resident-only parking,
So the landlords don't own any of the parking spots, so that's owned by the Village of Holly?
with the exception of 4 spots owned by Mr. Redmond with RHL Financial Group.
Okay. So would it, in that police parking proposal coming up that Jerry's going to submit to the DDA, is he submitting any requests for certain places to be marked off for downtown residents?
Yes.
We're looking at you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. And that's, you'll be submitting that when?
Soon. I'm still collecting some data. So
Okay.
what we want to do is get...
Chief, if you could you
I mean,
come up,
okay.
please?
Here.
Thank you.
I get stuck in these things.
Because of the gun belt?
Because I ate at Red Devil tonight. That's why. It wasn't on my diet. But, man, you drive by that enough, you got to stop in and get one of those. So, but what we're looking at is a complete parking management plan. The downtown parking is a turnover. That's a given. You want to turn that over at least every 2 hours. That's your most valuable parking in a downtown. So we're going to be presenting some options on how we can manage that. But in addition, we have to expand our overnight parking. So that's an issue right now as well. We've brought in more units downtown, so the issue then is where is everybody going to park? Then there's the overall question of if a landlord has a building downtown, does society have to provide parking for a specific purpose, residential? So we're going to look at all of those issues. We're going to look at maybe some shared parking agreements with some of the businesses that may be in the area that close at night, or maybe they're not open during the day, or so different options to have parking for events. Those shared use agreements can be very good, and maybe you mix in a little snow plowing option to get them on the hook, as well as resident management parking and business employee, because if we're going to move, the idea is to move employees and businesses off the street. That's your most important parking. That should be customers only. And a turnover. So we want to provide designated employee parking areas. So the data we're collecting right now is of the businesses downtown, how many of your employees drive there, what are the hours, how many cars are we going to have to manage, and then of the landlords downtown, how many people with vehicles do you have? And then we're going to boil that into a plan. And that then is a managing plan that we can enforce, we can regulate, and then everybody kind of understands. We're going to rename the lots. The goal is to give them all names so we know. And then the other kind of cool thing is we're going to geotag each of these lots. So if they don't have an address, we're going to give them an address. So we're going to geotag that with Google. So if you type in, I want to come to Holly for the Dickens Festival, what's going to pop up is 5 public parking lots. And because they have an address, you can tap that lot and your MapQuest will take you right to that lot. So it benefits our business district, it benefits everybody downtown, and anytime and you can tag those lots to any search that includes the word Holly, Village of Holly, Downtown Holly, Events Holly, Food Holly, and then those lots pop up. So it's going to have tremendous advantage and almost no investment other than some signage. and some different thinking. And we're going to get input from a lot of people to get this collectively approved. So.
Very good. Thank you,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Yeah. All right, so let's approach the podium, please. Yeah, just so everyone can hear and it's on the record.
So, like, what's the timeline to this actually, like, we're talking about it, when would it be implemented? Like, it's a real thing, like.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say effectively, I don't want to speak for purchasing signs and changing some things, and of course, certainly, I'm working with the manager and the DDA and Brian. So it's collectively when we can make those things happen, but I would estimate that we could have that in place before the snow flies, certainly before fall, to completely kind of realign our parking. It's going to involve some ordinances, and some of those are going to regulate who can use the on-street downtown parking and for what purpose and how long. Then we're going to look at you're going to want to have, my recommendation is going to be if you have a lot that isn't overnight parking, maybe this one is 6 hours. And that's kind of a parking management guideline. If you have a lot downtown that's close to your business district that isn't used for employee parking or resident, you have a 6 hour. So maybe you're 2 hours on the on-street, but you're 6 hour because a permanent takes, if you're having your hair done, if you're going to spend some time downtown or a ladies' night, you can do that in 6 hours, and another lot might be 23 maximum hours. Not 24, because the assumption is, I can park here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you make it 23, then it's a regulated, you can't go beyond 1 day. And that way you don't get junk cars, extra cars, somebody's motorhome, and then we can regulate that. So a lot of ideas, but we believe it's going to be very effective and help our business district and our residents as well.
Thank you,
All right,
Chief.
thank you.
Sir. Well, just one moment. I believe there is a
We don't even
point
have a
of order
motion
here.
yet. We don't even have a motion yet, so we can't have public comment.
That is very true, and thank you very much, Mr. Kinnaman. If anyone didn't hear, Mr. Kinnaman's comment was we don't have a motion yet on this agenda item, and typically we have motion, support, council deliberation, and then public comment. So to that end, what is the pleasure of council?
I would make a motion to approve through the end of June, and for this to be on the June agenda for review, to look at the option of extending for the rest of the time.
Wouldn't that bring us to the July agenda? You said
It would be on the June agenda. They would have through the end of June. Our meeting is late in June, so we're pretty much there anyhow.
Okay.
So
Because they don't start until May 23rd.
I think our meeting is the last Tuesday of June, isn't it?
It is.
So our meeting would be
During
during their last one
Okay.
of June. And so if we approved through that date, and then it was on our agenda, and had a review of where it stood, how it was working, what we were doing, tweaks that could be made, those kind of things, to fix it mid-course or say it's not working, that we don't extend it. So to put it, so I would make that motion to approve through June, with a item on the June agenda to review the remainder of the season.
I'll second.
Very good. We have a motion and support by Kinnaman and Brandon, respectively. Is there any further council deliberation desired?
Yeah, I heard what everyone had to say, and I'm inclined to think Mrs. Wallace has a point. I don't think it will affect Sunday business. I think it's going to be a different group of people that can't ordinarily attend on Sundays. And so I was really just considering the impact on parking. And I'm thinking about the hours. The event time on Tuesday that she's proposed is 3 to 8. Most of the businesses close by 4. So once the employees are gone, that opens up some parking. But we get to review at the end of June to see. So, thank you.
Any other council discussion desired? Any public comment, any further public comment desired on this issue? Sir, I think you had something.
I just wanted to ask the chief,
Mr. DeSessa, could you identify yourself first?
Bill DeSessa, 5100 East Holly Road. Chief, just a point, not necessarily a question, but if you're gonna geotag these parking lots, maybe down the road, we can have a public app that folks can download that can tell them when parking spaces become available, so that out-of-town people can download it, in-town people can use it to their advantage to find these open spaces. If this is an idea.
And if I can jump in, I hate to interrupt, but the comments are supposed to be germane to the issue that is before you. And the public, the parking plan is not the item of topic right now.
That is
So,
a good point.
I just hate to have a conversation about that, and then when it's brought up a month from now, have the same conversation. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gilner. That's an excellent point. Thank you, Mr. DeSessa. Are there any further public comments on this agenda item specifically? Seeing none, hearing none, Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Considering that we are over an hour into our meeting and we are less than halfway through our new business, I'm going to give everyone a brief 5-minute recess. We'll come back at 20:12. Thank you.
I know. She was.
Call the meeting back to order at 8:13. Item number 6, under new business, special event Ladies Weekend. Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you. So this event request is in new business for the same reason as the others. It's inside of that 60-day window. This is our annual Spring Ladies Night or Ladies Weekend. Out hugely successful. DDA does an excellent job along with their volunteers and vendors and nonprofit organizations that help out. The dates are May 5, 6, and 7, and the event times are listed on the form. So that really is your event request. If you have any specific questions about the event, Director Klump is here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make the motion. We approve the special event for Ladies Weekend.
Second.
Motion by Perkins, support by Kinnaman. Is there any council discussion desired on this item?
It's a good event.
Is there any public comment desired on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 7 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to schedule a special meeting regarding DWSRF and CWSRF funds application. Mr. Walker.
Only if you know what those initials are for. No, just kidding. So on January the 10th at that council meeting, Village Council approved staff to work with Rowe Professional Services in the preparation of an application to apply for funds by way of grant and or a low-interest loan offerings by the state through the Drinking Water Revolving Fund or the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And so they're just what they say. One's for drinking water, the other is for clean water or storm sanitary for those purposes. As part of the application process, it is required that a separate public meeting be conducted, similar to a public hearing, but they call it public meeting, in which it just gives the public opportunity to review the documents. They can review the documents prior to the meeting. They will be at the village office. It's quite lengthy, so really it's not really applicable to do it online, just because it's a very lengthy application with details and plans. But they can review it ahead of time. They can come to that meeting. They can ask questions or make comments and give their thoughts. There is no decision by council that night, so it is not scheduled as a public meeting where there's an action item. It is a meeting to just receive public comment. We have requested that the council schedule that meeting for April the 25th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in this room.
Thank you,
I'll make a
Mr. Walker.
motion- Oh,
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the consideration of the approval of council action request to schedule a special meeting regarding the funds applications.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Brandon and support. Is there any council discussion desired on that item?
It's to be here.
I assume that
he
it
said
will be
here.
in this chamber?
Yes.
Yes. Is everyone good with the date and the time?
I am.
Okay. All right. Is there any public comment desired on that item? And of course, we would encourage everyone to come out for that special meeting / public hearing. Yes, Ms. Wallace.
Just one quick thing.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple people, what time, what date? So if you could repeat it
Oh, yes,
again.
absolutely. So, yeah, the date is April 25th. I believe that's
correct.
Yeah, the last Tuesday of this month at 7 p.m. right here in this chamber. Yeah. Any public comment? Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 8, under new business. Consideration of the approval of council action request to consider ordinance 472, which creates an ethics ordinance for council, board, and commission members. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. So on December the 13th, at that meeting, the council discussed the issue of an ethics ordinance or update to the current policy. The current policy was adopted in 2011, and so it's been a number of years. While it's been reviewed from time to time, it has not been altered since 2011 that I'm aware of. And so the Ethics Committee then held meetings on January the 17th and again on February the 21st of 2023. The culmination of those meetings resulted in the recommendation of the Ethics Committee to bring forward this new ordinance 472, which would replace the existing policy and would then become the ethics ordinance for the Village of Holly. And so I know you've all had time to review it. Ms. Kyer was the chair of that committee. Also on that committee was Councilor Kinnaman and Councilor Brandon. And so if you have any specific questions, I'm sure any of the three of them or staff we'd be happy to answer.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any council discussion desired on that item? Yeah, Ms. Kyer.
A citizen brought up a pretty good question about this. They asked about anonymous complaints. And let's say, for example, somebody just really wants to stir the pot and they say, Jim Perkins kicked my dog, you know. Like,
Jim.
Which he would never do.
Under the policy here, what we have is that even if Mr. Walker determined that it had no merit, he would still have to bring it to council. And what we're wondering is, in a situation like that where it's anonymous and maybe it's somebody that's causing problems, should we put a stipulation in there about anonymous complaints that maybe Mr. Walker would and maybe Mr. Gildner could get together and say, this really holds no merit?
Sure, and I think that's exactly the process that would occur, and we could formalize that through an administrative policy to say that if anonymous complaints were received, that they would be evaluated by the village attorney and the village manager to see if there was merit to proceed forward. I mean, there will be some type of anonymous complaints over the years. Some will have merit on their face and will need to be investigated. Others, you know, if they're deemed to be just malicious or no merit, then that's exactly what would occur. And then they would, the manager and the attorney would confer on those.
So do we have to switch anything in this?
You don't necessarily have to. You could make an amendment to the ordinance and add it right to the ordinance. In speaking with Mr. Gildner, another way of handling it, and I think an appropriate way, is to just do it through administrative directive, and then it would attach to the ordinance.
So,
sorry, Mr. Gildner, that would be your advice on that?
Yes, we spoke about it briefly before the meeting, and that's so your options tonight are to postpone action on this, build it into the existing ordinance. My recommendation is it can be dealt with administratively after the fact. That would be another way and an appropriate way.
Okay.
Agreed.
So I'm not making a motion, I am asking a question. If it would be appropriate for me to say, I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance. And we would, at a later time, add on the administration's, what would be the word, process?
I would deal with them separately. I think there could be a motion made to adopt the ordinance as presented. And then if you wish, you can simply make a motion that administratively there be a policy or resolution put forth to deal with anonymous complaints. Leave it open-ended like that, and that can come back to you in the future.
If we do it like that, would we be required to have another ethics committee
No.
meeting?
No.
Okay.
And Mr. Gillner, just to be clear, you're talking about potentially amending the ordinance at a future meeting?
No,
No,
I'm not.
doing it.
I'm saying.
Later in this meeting?
No, I'm saying that if you adopt this ordinance as is, there can be separate, independent of this ordinance, there can be an administrative policy on how to deal with anonymous complaints. Does not require an amendment to the ordinance per se.
Okay. Does that
And
make sense,
And
Ms.
you
Brandon?
can, you can make a motion to that effect to direct us to write the administrative policy, but by hearing you tonight, we are going to write the administrative policy, and then I will just forward it to council for review.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to make it sure, not that you wouldn't do it, but to directive you to do it formally would be to make it conditional upon an
Build that into the motion.
administrative directive on anonymous.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 472 as is, and also direct the manager and attorney to create a document addressing anonymous complaints.
I will
Yeah,
second
that.
that.
I just want to be absolutely clear. Are you saying that you are moving to approve the ordinance as presented, conditional upon staff
Following the directive to
creating a written directive regarding
anonymous complaints?
anonymous complaints to be submitted to us as Mr. Kinnaman suggested?
Actually, I liked the wording you used.
Okay.
That didn't say conditional.
Okay.
But rather includes a directive.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's a two-part motion, not a conditional motion.
Very good. Okay. And Ms. Brandon, that's?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Does that help you?
I like
And Ms.
including
Kyer,
that as well.
your support stands.
Absolutely.
Very good. All right, we
Okay.
have a motion and support. Is there any council discussion desired?
Yes. First of all, I would like to personally thank Jim Cascella from the Planning Commission for bringing this to light. And, yeah, that's it.
All right. Any further council discussion desired on this item? Is there any public comment desired on this item? Yes, Ms. Barnes.
Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. I have a little bit of a concern and a question. So when we're talking about anonymous complaints, when I first had my original complaint to the council back last year, if you remember, I tried to keep that anonymous. I tried to keep it so that it was just, it wasn't, I went to Mr. Walker and the president was aware, but I didn't want anyone else to know. And I want to know what we're talking about when we're talking about anonymous. Would that be considered anonymous?
What we're talking about is somebody that continuously makes frivolous accusations. It wouldn't be just a one-off.
Okay.
And won't
Well-
tell the manager their name.
Right, and I think,
yeah.
truly the term anonymous means that somebody sends an unsigned letter
Okay.
that,
Yeah, because yours was not anonymous. You
Right.
went to
Well,
Mr. Walker.
Right.
Kind of.
In the sense that we're
Yeah,
using
right.
anonymous. Right.
You were willing to let them know who
That was
you were.
confidential. It wasn't anonymous.
And I
Right.
think it's that accountability
Yeah.
which would hopefully prevent people, it holds the accuser accountable by just letting Jerry know who they are.
Great. And that, my second part is, obviously we haven't had a chance to read this ordinance. I have full faith and trust in you guys, but I want to make sure, is there anything in there about how a council member treats their constituent when they're coming to them with business? For instance, when President McKinney screamed at me and said derogatory things to me. That is something that I don't feel falls
addressed.
under our ethical guidelines. So that is something that's addressed in there?
Yeah.
Perfect,
There's
that's all I wanted to
conduct.
know. Thank
Yeah,
you very
there's-
much,
yeah.
appreciate it.
trying to find exactly where that is.
It's standards of conduct. I
Yeah.
believe it'd be under
Yeah.
31.68.
Yeah. Sorry, just trying to.
I know, I moved my papers around so many times I can't.
Right.
Yeah. Because that is, I think, important to.
I think it'd even fall on 31.69 too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I believe that was even a part of the previous code of conduct. Yeah. Is there any further public comment desired on this item? Yes, Ms. Mattson.
Hannah Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. Unless I missed it, this updated ethics wasn't available to the public at all. You guys didn't read through it. I know this isn't a dialogue at public comment, but it's hard for us to give our thoughts about it when we don't know what it is, what it says. So that would have been helpful for the public to actually give an opinion. So, thank you.
Just want to clarify. We read it because the council packet in full is delivered to us in hard copy every Thursday evening prior to a council meeting. But I am aware, and only became aware late yesterday, that the packet in its entirety was not fully uploaded to the village website. So I think that might be what you're referring to. Any further public comment? Yes, Ms. Rebar.
Nancy Rebar, 405 South Saginaw. Mine is more of a question. In my professional life, I worked in child welfare. And so we had many, many complaints and allegations that came to the state of Michigan, who was not my employer. And those complaints sometimes had merit and sometimes did not. But the requirement was that anybody that made a complaint expressed a concern, and of course we had mandated reporters, like yours truly, that they were, the reporter's confidentiality was protected by law. Okay? Now that's different from making an anonymous complaint. So John Q. Public can call CPS and say, I have a concern about the child next door who's being abused or neglected, and I'm not giving my name. Versus, I'm giving my name, but I want my confidentiality protected. So I would just urge you to think about that in the context of this ethics ordinance.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
Yeah. Ms. Wallace.
The word that keeps coming to mind is undisclosed. It might be undisclosed to the rest of council, but disclosed to our attorney and our manager. So that can come to you as an undisclosed person. That's not the same as anonymous.
Correct.
So
Right.
you would know who this person was, or people, or group, or whatever, but it would be undisclosed to the rest of council. So I think that term undisclosed is very important here. Undisclosed to you maybe, or to whoever, but not to our village attorney and our manager. So that's the difference there.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. DeSessa.
I think there are anonymous.
Name and address, please.
Oh, thank you.
Name and address, please.
I'm sorry. William DeSessa, 5100 East Holly Road. You know, there are anonymous complaints, and then there are anonymous complaints. I think a lot of them tend to be frivolous by their very nature, but some of them are anonymous but happen to be true. I would like to see, once this ethics policy is developed, it take a step further in the interest of accountability to say this. If it's anonymous, still handle the same way as suggested, but Jerry and/or the village attorney then discloses to you at least a broad anonymous nature of the complaint, so you're aware of it. Because what happens if good Jerry leaves tomorrow and we get bad Jerry? And then bad Jerry just decides to play politics with all these anonymous complaints. Well, guess what? Oh, they're all frivolous. Well, you don't know because you didn't receive anything. I'm just wondering if it should go a little step further. I'm not saying that the anonymous complaint should be broadcast publicly, you know, to everybody. That defeats the purpose of handling an anonymous complaint. What I am saying is somehow, in a general, broad way, maybe there should be a summary. Council, this month we had these 3 anonymous complaints, and generally this is what it's about. Because guess what? One of you might know something about it once you hear Jerry say, this involves so-and-so. Oh, you know what? I do know something about that, and here's some more information, Jerry, for you to look at. You know, it's possible. I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, sir.
I would
Any-
say the summary report could easily come back to the Ethics Committee, just a report that says a violation was reviewed, was anonymous, was found this.
Jim was not kicking puppies.
That could occur in that manner. However, I think you're really accomplishing exactly what Mr. DeSessa was talking about when you have the attorney
Correct.
who does not work for the manager, but works for the council as a second set of eyes. So the manager will, whether it's me or it's the next manager, the
Bad
next
Jerry.
manager,
Bad Jerry.
will never make that independent decision. It will always be looked at. It'll always be looked at by the officer that reports directly to the council. So you do have those 2 set of eyes.
And I do have faith in the 2 of you in being able to create a relevant and fluid document.
Mr. Gilner, did you have something to add on that?
I really don't. No, I think Jerry has said everything, and that policy or resolution that'll come to you, you'll be satisfied with it or you won't, and we can tweak it.
Okay. Any further public comment desired on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Heyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 9, consideration of the approval of council action request to hire LC United to paint/repair towers and Dixon Engineering to inspect the repairs. Mr. Walker. Or excuse me, Mr. Clausen. Yeah.
Thank you, Council. Back in the end of 2021, Council approved for Dixon Engineering to do inspections of our 3 towers. They submitted reports, and in those reports there was maintenance items that needed to be addressed. One of them was painting of the exterior and interior of the towers, and maintenance items that are now required from Eagle for towers, for drinking water towers. So we solicited bids. There's a bid sheet attached to the council action request, and LC United came back as a low bidder for both the DPW and Quick Road Tower and for the repairs. One tower will be done out of this year's budget, and one tower will be done out of next year's budget. So just giving you an update that if you approve this tonight, the money coming up in July will be discussed at the upcoming budget hearing meeting, so we'll know what that's going on. And the contractor was aware when they bid on them that they were in 2 separate fiscal years, and some of those items that were listed were itemized if we needed to cut back on them. But as you can see, the bids came back lower than when originally anticipated in 2021 of about $40,000, which surprised me with the way fuel costs and supplies have been lately that we were able to get a bid like this. Talking with Dixon Engineer, they've worked with this contractor before and have had some success with them, so they were confident in us going with this bidder. And then Dixon Engineer would, the next motion would, or the next part of it would be hiring Dixon Engineer, and this is just for the DPW tower, that they would perform all the inspections and climb the tower and make sure that everything is right for Sprint, who's or T-Mobile now, who's our vendor that is up on the water tower for DPW.
So that's approximately 125 this year and then 125 out of next year's budget?
Yes.
Okay. That's so much money.
Which the one tower was painted in 2006 and the last tower was painted in 2009. Then they recommend about 10 years, so we're a little bit behind on the maintenance of those things. And what happens is if they get nicks and stuff in there, they tend to rust a little bit quicker. So a new tower's a lot more expensive. So
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve?
Yes, and just be mindful that it's a two-part motion, and there are two dollar amounts that you will need to state in that motion.
yeah, one is for the inspections.
Oh, and one is for the
for the actual work itself.
Yeah.
inspection.
Yeah, total is $376,200.
I see. I would like to make a motion to approve.
Just read it
Yeah.
here only.
Hiring
Yeah.
LC United for $348,300 to paint and perform the listed repair items, and to retain Dixon Engineering to perform the inspection of these repairs for $27,900. Is that okay to combine it into one motion? Thank you.
We have
I'll
a
second.
We have a motion by Brannon, support by Kinnaman. Is there any further council discussion desired on this item?
Which tower would they start with?
DPW. Because we had to do some prep work for Quick Road because we have two separate pressure systems, so we have to make sure that the high pressure system can operate correctly without the tower.
When would work commence?
We're looking at around June, end of May, June.
Anything else from council? Is there any public comment desired on this item? Yes, Ms. Ray.
Cassandra Ray, 121 North Corbin. I was a project manager for 18 years, and I'm a certified lead-based paint inspector, so I just want to make sure that this is done properly. I've turned a tired eye to a lot of repairs downtown, and the fines can be astronomical, $36,500 per day per offense, which would be a huge burden on the taxpayer. So when you talk about like pressure washing the paint, there's more than likely lead-based paint there, and I just. But even after lead-based paint, there was still, I just want to make sure the proper testing is going to be done.
That's what Dixon's for.
Okay, so I just had to get that out there because it is something that weighs on my conscience.
I'm a project manager as well.
Yeah,
so
it's
I
a
get it.
mandatory reporting thing. That's why I'm retired. But anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further public comment desired on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Heyer.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Clausen. Item number 10 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to consider council meeting times. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. So currently, the Village Council and Planning Commission meetings are conducted once a month at 7 p.m., as were the other commission meetings for different commissions of the village. Recently, the Parks Commission, the Historic District Commission, and the ZBA have all approved motions to move their respective monthly meetings to 6 p.m. Start time. This item is being brought to the council for consideration of moving to 6 p.m. For their monthly meeting in order to be consistent with other commissions and boards. It's my understanding that the Planning Commission has discussed this item and they're waiting to take lead from the council. So it's simply moving the meeting same day, just 1 hour earlier.
I would entertain a motion and support before we proceed to council deliberation.
I like the idea of a 6 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
So I'll make the motion that we move to bring our meetings to 6 p.m.
Second.
We have a Motion by Perkins, support by Kinnaman to move our meeting times to 6 p.m. instead of 7. Is there any council discussion desired on this item?
I wouldn't mind getting home a little bit earlier. I have kids and I go to bed at 8 when you guys don't keep me up later than that, so.
And I think it makes it more cohesive if all the meeting times are at the same time, so that a citizen doesn't have to say, well, the planning commission is at 6 or 7, and is parks at this time or not.
What time does DDA meet?
6 p.m.
We did with HDC too.
Yeah, but parks went to 6.
ZBA just switched to 6 p.m. as well.
And part of our reason in planning to hold off was not only to wait and see where council went with it, but also our chair was out at that last meeting, and so I felt it better to have him present to make that kind of decision.
Yeah, honestly, it's just crossing my mind too that lets our staff go home an hour earlier after a long day too.
Oh yeah, Brian, Jerry, Deb, they're hanging out. Come on, meeting start.
While we do endorse this, this was not our idea.
Narsha's back there going, no, I want to eat a Red Devil.
Is there any further council discussion desired on this?
No, I think it's a good idea.
Is there any public comment desired on this item? Yes, Ms. Barnes.
Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. I'm pretty sure this is going to pass, and I can appreciate why you guys are deciding to make this decision. Continuity, getting home early, staff getting out early. Let's remember, though, that we have one meeting a month. My husband doesn't get out of work till 6. So this will affect some of your constituents being able to come to your meetings. And being able to watch online is not the same as being able to come and be able to participate, give your own input, those kinds of things. So just remember that in order to make it more convenient and continuity, you may be taking away somebody's ability to access their one public meeting that they have a month. So I would just like you to take that into consideration. I know that it is a struggle to stay here an hour later, but we are talking about one day a month too. So we do appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, hearing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Brandon.
No.
Harrington.
No.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 11 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to amend the council rules of procedure. Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you. At the council meeting of January 8th, 2018, council rules concerning public comment were amended to eliminate the second public comment during a meeting and to allow public to comment after council consideration on each new business item. Per the request of council, we are proposing to amend the current council rules back to the prior method of allowing 2 public comments during the meeting, 1 at the beginning and the second at the end of the meeting, but prior to administrative reports. This method of procedure is the most common in other municipalities and does allow comment prior to agenda items being considered and again after they are voted on. In discussing this with Mr. Goldner, and certainly Mr. Goldner can speak to his own comments, but we had the discussion that of the many municipalities that he represents, this method that is being proposed, which is the one that council always used up until 2018 of 2 comments but not during each agenda item, is the most consistent. I mean, I'll let him, if you have further question about why, I'll let him answer those. But I mean, that's just, I thought I'd throw that out there for you.
What is the pleasure of council before we proceed to
Well, I think
deliberation?
my pleasure would be to see who is it on council that wants to propose this and why.
I would
Clearly,
propose
this was
it.
brought up by.
I would propose it, and in favor for the audience. Is that the right word? Why do I feel like it's not the right word for
Could be, or
audience?
the public. Yeah.
For the public, if you've got some guests that want to, just make a comment about something they have coming up that they want to tell everyone, and they don't really want to address any agenda items, they can say it in the first public comment, then they can leave.
Correct.
And you've got 4 minutes in the beginning and the end. And is the proposal that both comments are for agenda and non-agenda items?
No, the purpose would be that the first public comment would be for any item or any topic, and the second public comment would be intended for comments on action of the council.
Oh, second is for agenda only.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The way we did it for many, many, many years.
Yeah. And then Richard actually brought up a good point earlier that I really
Let me
liked.
second it, and then we can have discussion.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion officially to approve.
Council Rules of Procedure Amendment.
The request to amend the council rules of procedure.
To what effect? If you could just summarize.
Pardon?
Like, if you could specify briefly what in your motion.
Which would give public comment near the beginning for
You can just read this
agenda
section
or none.
again.
Where at?
Read this section again.
One at the beginning and the second at the end, but prior to administrative reports.
So we have a motion by Brannon, support by Kinnaman. Council discussion.
Yes, I will go first. Okay. So first of all, this was brought to us actually back in like January, February when we were given the Michigan Municipal League thing. I think that's what kicked all of this off. And it's basically all about government efficiency, right? We want to make efficient meetings, efficient governance. So what I did is I did my research and I went back and I looked at other municipalities around us, Ortonville, Linden, Fenton, Grand Blanc. They might have a shorter council meeting by about 20 minutes. I also went back to before we had this rule to see, did it make it more efficient that way? Again, no, it didn't make it any more efficient. So I guess my argument is this isn't making government any more efficient, and if somebody wants to comment, like a random comment, they can do that in the first comment section that we have at these meetings. So I just don't understand, I guess, why we would change it, because it's not making us more efficient.
I'm not necessarily sure efficiency is the word. It is more a clarity of process that goes on. The reason this came up in the in the meeting last month was because we had an OMA violation because the clarity got lost in that process. And it helps, I think, with that clarity, that process that goes on, and the general process that we are here to conduct business, and to have the public, number one, by OMA, it is that it is a public meeting. And the interesting term that you were struggling with was audience, you know, and that is the primary thing that we look at with the public, is that they are an audience to our discussion, deliberation, and process. And then they are allowed, or there must be a required time for comment. And to keep that clarity, process, and it's sometimes decorum to our meetings, it helps to put things in almost categories, in, you know, and so to operate that way, we ran into one, and we were talking about that during the break, that we ran into that instance almost today as well again, with we had made a motion and then we had the public input, and that public input made us come back and undo the motion. If you've got that discussion, if you've got that input before the motion even gets made, the ability to not have that kind of confusion is there.
I'll acknowledge your research. I trust you 100% that it might not cut off a long time on most average meetings. Tonight, each member of the public has the potential to speak up to 44 minutes apiece. And we have had some meetings go long. So that is something that I wanted to point out. I will say it's not most of them.
Right.
I give that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think your experience running library board meetings,
I don't want to talk about it.
gives you, and you know, the meetings that I have run, it does help a meeting move much clearer with things in certain time frames rather than blended like this. And I'm sure, you know, Mr. Delaney learned that with the incident that created the OMA, that it, when you start changing things in the middle, it gets far easier for it to get muddled.
Well, I want to say, though, to be very clear, there was an OMA violation alleged because a particular member of the public believed rightly that, you know, public comment was cut short per our practice. You know, but because that was, you know, inadvertent, you know, from my perspective, sitting up here in the chair, I didn't see any, you know, further public comment desired. Nobody was saying, "Oh, me." Nobody was raising a hand that I could see. It was determined by Mr. Gilner that there was no OMA violation occurring. You know, and that is why I have been very careful. I mean, I hear your point about kind of hewing close to proper parliamentary procedure, right? We have motion and support, then we have council discussion, then we have public comment, and then we proceed only then to a roll call vote. But let's all of us zoom out for a moment. I think we on this body have seen more than a couple instances just tonight where public comment on specific agenda items has helped us to process you know, the questions that are before us. and perhaps have even changed our minds. You know, I've changed my minds at least a couple times just in this meeting by listening to council deliberation and listening to public comment. In a larger municipality or at a higher level of government, I totally understand that just would not be practical. But we have the privilege in our little town of Holly that we can entertain public input on agenda items before we even take a vote. You know, we get the first say, we hand it over to the public for their input, and we take a vote. You know? And sometimes, I just gotta say it, that's not comfortable for some of us up here. I know it sure as heck has not been comfortable for me always, as I found myself the subject of public scrutiny and criticism, and many members of this body have found themselves the subject of public scrutiny and criticism. But my policy and my attitude is always, thank you very much, sir, thank you very much, ma'am, for your comment. You know, because it's a tough game. Politics, and if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. You know? And I'm not directing this to any member of council in particular. I really mean that, I'm not. But I'm almost wondering if the concern is less about efficient use of time, less about you know, how representative democracy is ideally supposed to function, and more about, you know, sitting in the hot seat and being subject to public scrutiny and questioning.
With 4 minutes before and after, that's 8 minutes total, and there is in no way anything limited as far as what the public can say or accuse members of council of. So within that 8 minutes, as long as they come prepared and cohesive, I know I take notes as we go along for anything that's relevant. I think I've seen other, you know, members do so as well. And then it would help us to perhaps, like in our instance today, be prepared with a proper motion with, you know, parking noted and whatnot, instead of having to scrap the motion, create some new ones with all of those things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon. Any further council comment desired on that?
I don't think the good that comes from this, shortening up the meetings a little bit, is worth taking away the voice from the people.
Thank you.
You're having two separate opportunities to talk.
But maybe they have,
A particular
you have
concern
4
about a
minutes or
particular
whatever,
agenda item.
but like you said, if we've got 4 agenda items, now that makes 12 minutes where you can give a cohesive argument for every case that you're building instead of trying to push them all together in 4 minutes. That would be my argument.
I agree.
And again, you know, if we were a big city or, you know, a state or federal government body, of course, that would just be totally impractical. But we have the privilege of being able to hear the public out on items. And to me, that is like, that's not a flaw in the system. That's democracy at its finest. You know? Any further council discussion desired before we open up, maybe for the last time, for public comment? Miss Everly, I think you were first. You.
Everybody's taking that opportunity.
You beat him to it.
Okay. Cheryl Everly, 314 Hadley Street. We used to have 2 council meetings a month. We used to have 2 council meetings a month. And when we cut down to 1 council meeting a month, we were given the opportunity of having this new way of doing public input. I, for one, thought it was crazy because I thought we would have John Love standing here giving us visual aids for every agenda item. And I was wrong. That has not happened. I actually like this way of doing things, and I will give you a perfect example why. Number 11 on tonight's agenda says, consideration of the approval of council action request to amend the council rules of procedure. How in the heck would I know what you were talking about at public comment before you got to the agenda item? How would I know what agenda item DWSRF and CWSRF is about until you get to the agenda item? And unless you want to have an explanation for me, the public, so that I can prepare my comments before I get here, it is helpful for me to hear from you. Maybe I'll just keep my mouth shut. But if I have to guess what is on here, it's going to take me a lot more than 4 minutes to go through an agenda at the opening. And if I was going to change anything, I'd keep it the way it is, and I would add public comment for the very last thing, so that maybe people would have a chance to say, good on ya. You did a good job tonight. Or, by the way, this piece about the parking, I'd like to meet with the chief because I could give him some other little piece of information that might be helpful. But I appreciate Mr. Harrington very much. I think that this administration has continued to cut down how much time that the public can spend talking with you people. And I appreciate you standing up for us.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Mattson.
Anna Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. I just want to very much reiterate what just took place. I was going to say basically the exact same thing. Technically, by law, only the agenda has to be published. Typically, yes, in a month that the full agenda packet is also available to the public for view, but it doesn't have to be, just the agenda. So a citizen looking at the agenda before a meeting really has no clue the details that are going to be in that discussion. And any critique about efficiency and how much time someone gets, really, if someone expires their time, you guys can take a vote to extend their time. So really, it's not if we have two sessions, public comment sessions, that they get 8 minutes. Technically, they can keep going on, and if council votes that's okay. Again, in terms of efficiency, I would just give a critique to our president that if anything, we can maybe go from 4 minutes to 3 minutes, because that is pretty consistent with Oakland County, and that's consistent with our township as well, I believe. So that could be a little helpful. And also, public comment is not a back and forth, and that gets muddied a lot. So we just need to put a stop to that. There's also been numerous instances where people go over their time, and I've counted times that it's been more like 5 minutes that people have spoke. That's not okay. You need to cut people off at 4 minutes. Be rude. It's okay, because that's the law. So just cut people off. And it also, the crowd is not supposed to have outbursts. So that's, again, the president, that is your job to make order in this room. So if anyone is worried about efficiency, those things can very much help that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Wallace.
Angela Wallace, 709 Baird Street. When Mr. Walker said this was passed in 2018, that we had this, that's 5 years ago. In that time, you have cut our meetings in half. You've given yourselves raises, so you have more money that was coming in. And some of you who are newer, obviously, that you might not know that. So we have, as the public, have been given half the amount of time to speak to you. And right now we are at approximately 2 hours and 10 minutes, maybe a 5 to 10 minute break in between. So if 2 hours is too much for you to speak to your constituents, I have a problem with that, and I think most of the Village of Holly would have a problem with you can't speak to your constituents for 2 hours. And then I guess my last thing would be, who were those two members? Because I want to know who not to vote for next time, because if you can't spend 2 hours sitting in a meeting to represent us, we need to know who not to vote for.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Ms. Watt.
Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street, Apartment 3. I want to, just make a big ball of yarn of what everyone has just said and what y'all have said. There are multiple people who just spoke with whom we have sat in this very chamber and vehemently disagreed with each other. We sit on different sides. We see things differently. There have been times I've stood for the last 3 years at this podium and I've watched people with whom I don't agree listen to my input, listen to other people's input, and I have watched their vote change because we found common ground. I know this is not normal. I've been to many other meetings, many other municipalities. I did that as I was campaigning last time. I get it. We're Holly, but we're freaking weird. We're different. We do things different. We don't want to be Fenton. That's what's in the forum. We don't want to be Grand Blanc. We want to be Holly. Well, this is how Holly's done it since 2018. And the way I understand it is that people, we literally spend our time. When we leave here, y'all do whatever it is y'all do that's your version of council homework and, talking to people. Everyone in this room tonight, I can name them by name, and they spend every frickin' day in this community talking to people at the coffee shop, people at the restaurants, business owners, spending their money, donating their time to our parks that we have no frickin' budget for. They donate their time to our DDA. They donate and volunteer their time because we don't have money to pay people to do stuff. The least y'all can do is listen to us gripe a little bit sometimes, and sometimes we give you praise. Sometimes we are so thankful for the things you do, and it's so beautiful. If I go back 6 months ago to November to right now, the cohesiveness, an actual unanimous vote by you, oh my God. It's amazing because you have to learn how to work together. But the people of this town pay taxes and they matter. And that's why we voted for some of you and not others of you, because you said you were for us. And to take this away from us, this parking issue alone tonight is living proof that y'all weren't thinking about who was living downtown. You were not thinking about the business owners and employees. You were not thinking about any of that, and I'm not maliciously. You just weren't thinking about it. Our input matters. Whether we agree, disagree, and it gets a little nasty. At the end, I see every one of you out in the streets, at the gas station, at the coffee shop, anywhere else, and I say hello. We have coffee, and we have a cordial relationship. I work with this village government. I work with our police force. I work with our fire department, our public works, all of it. And we can get rowdy in here, but we work together in this community, and y'all need to work with us in this meeting, in this chamber. Our voices matter. And I will piggyback what Angela said. If I find out whoever is so vehement, it's not because, okay, I don't care. If you don't want to get home, if you want to get home on time, don't be in village government. Go do something else that's 8 to 5. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Rebar.
Nancy Rebar, 405 South Saginaw. I'm going to be giving, if I just give you a little bit. So, here's the thing. First of all, I'm very dismayed that we would even be considering squashing public input. We should be encouraging public input, nurturing public input, having public speak after the fact is not right. Just because you have the right to do it doesn't make it right. It's not okay. Public needs to be heard. And that was my takeaway from all the Zoning Board of Appeals meetings that I have chaired. People just want to be heard. And they want to be heard when the decision is being made, not afterwards. This smacks of a squashing of freedom of speech. It really does, folks. It's not okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Barnes.
Should start wearing a T-shirt with my address. Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. One of the reasons I moved to Holly is it's a small place, small government. I'm able to interact with my leadership, and I'm able to come to council and give my opinion and have it heard before a decision is made. What good does it do me to speak my opinion after you've made a decision that may not be able to be rescinded? What good does it do me to give you my opinion or give you valuable information that may have informed your opinion after you've already voted? You want to take away my freedom of speech on individual items to make it more convenient for you? To make it so that you can get home easier, earlier at night? I can appreciate that it's difficult to come here and stay late one night a month. But that's what we're asking for. We're asking for one night. And if sometimes it runs over an hour or even two, we're sorry that you had to put a little bit more into the position that you ran for, that you chose to run for. Nobody asked you to run for these positions. You chose to do it, all of you, except for Mr. Harrington, you were appointed. Caveat. You all decided to run this, and you knew that these public comments were in place. As far as the OMA violation, 2018, we're talking 5 years. An alleged OMA violation happened while we were in a transition of government. Let's remember that. We were in a new government, learning new things, learning new process, learning how things go, and that's going to be the smackdown, one little bubble, one little boo-boo there, and all of a sudden we're going to take away the public's opportunity to be able to comment. Doesn't sound like a government that wants to hear from their constituency. Sounds to me like somebody who just wants to make it convenient for themselves and go home. That's what voting yes on this motion says to your constituency across the board, I promise you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Shield.
Ryan Shield, 320 LeGrand Street, Holly, Michigan. As I recall, I was on council that approved going to this current format. And at that time, I think I was one of maybe one or two that was against going to it. And I do believe I was against it because I didn't think it was right. And I do believe at that time we were going to it for efficiency. I do believe. And now, as I look at it now, I find that it's not really maybe not all that efficient, maybe a touch. Yeah, meetings go a little longer, maybe not much, but you know, some of these people here, yeah, are right. You do have to sacrifice a little bit of time, you know, out of your day, at night, one time a month. I did serve, it was a couple hours a night, one time a month. I do believe at the time I was on, it was, in the beginning, it was 2 times a month. It went down to 1. And it was no big deal for me to sit here and to listen to everybody on both sides. And, you know, but the way it is now, I find it more efficient and more easier to have the public comment at the beginning and have everybody come up and listen and have you guys listen to the public during each comment or each thing, not have 2 public comments. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment desired on this item? So
Can I make a
yes.
point of clarity?
Yes.
Because a couple of people have made the comment that you would only be able to speak after, and that is not what this says. It says that you speak at the beginning and then again at the end, just not during the deliberations. And I think Hearing that a couple of times, I just want to make sure that that's understood, that it is not doing that. It's not saying you only get to talk at the end.
I'd like to speak on behalf of the public. I think what they're saying is they only get to speak after with knowledge of agenda items, as Sherilyn pointed out, who has perhaps swayed me. I don't agree with the rest of you. I have no problem with 4 minutes before and after, but if you don't know what the topics are, and I don't know how else to address that, so.
Are you wanting to withdraw your motion? It's just a
Oh.
question.
That's an interesting question. I'm allowed to do that now?
Mhm.
I would like to withdraw my motion.
In which case, there is still a motion and support. Well,
There's not.
no, there's
a
not.
motion.
No, there's not. We could take no action at all.
The second, who seconded the motion?
That was Richard, I
Then
think.
Mr.
Yep.
Kinnaman would have to withdraw his second as well.
Mr. Kinnaman?
I'll withdraw.
Okay. Fine. Is there any council action desired on this item? I just want to be absolutely sure.
Let it die.
And we will let it die. There's no action. Our current policy remains. Just for good measure. All right. What was previously number 4 on consent agenda, consideration of the approval of Resolution 2023-016 to combine parcels IH-01-28-427-012 and IH-01-28-427-013. 3518 Grange Hall Road now becomes item number 12 under new business.
I requested this be pulled for
Yeah.
discussion. First question is pretty simple. This was brought to me by a member of the Planning Commission. Was this brought to Planning Commission in the past?
These do not go to planning commission.
Yeah, so lot splits and combinations do not go in front of the planning commission per ordinance. They're handled by council.
Okay. I think I'm a little bit confused after some of the reading that I did. So it doesn't need to go through planning, it only goes through council.
That's correct. Planning commission handled the site plans for
The site plans, okay,
For
so
these
not,
sites.
not the parcel. Got it.
That's
Thank you
correct.
for that. And then page, well, the back of the second page, please. Letter B, 1, 2, 3, the fourth down. The proprietor's certificate, MCL 560.144. Nothing was checked. Was this a clerical omission or an omission of the applicant?
So this document is completed by the applicant.
Give us that again, please.
That was Ryan, letter B, sorry, Mr. President, letter
Mhm.
B, the proprietor certificate, MCL
It'd be
560.144.
under 3, item 3.
Got it.
Under item
Yep.
3,
Point
B3, second point.
Yep,
So
got
nothing
it.
was checked. So I just wanted to make sure everything was tended to, because there was no check mark there.
Yeah, there is no issue with that. This was reviewed by our planners also at Rowe
Okay.
for accuracy.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the confusion that I had on Planning Commission.
So then, it would be appropriate to approve that item. So we'll need motion and support.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to combine parcels IH-01-28-427-012 and IH 0128427-013, 3518 Grange Hall Road.
I'll second.
Right. Motion by Kinnaman, support by Perkins. Is there any further council discussion desired on that item? Is there any public comment desired on that item? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Reports. Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you. You have included in your council packet my written manager's report for the month. And while we don't always, or are not always able to answer all questions asked during public comment, President Delaney and I had a discussion early on after his election, and those questions that could be answered, that we would attempt to do so. And so in saying that, I would just answer Marlo's question, one about the handicap parking sign that she spoke about that was needed in front of the building here. So this portion of the street is really private property. It's owned by Holly Area Schools. It is not a public road. Now, in saying that, I'm not sure that they would be opposed to us putting up a handicap sign there, and she is absolutely right, where at one point there was never any parking out front. Now every public meeting there is parking out front, usually Marlo. But even with saying that, I think a sign there would be appropriate. And so based on that, I will speak with the schools and see if they have any objection to us posting a public sign there, as long as we are hosting public meetings at this location. Now, when the school demolishes this building in 2025 and builds a new building, that street will be closed off because it's school property, and so it's going to close off. There'll be a different vehicle route for all the vehicles, and so that sign will not be of any use then anyways. Another thing, and this really happens not at every meeting, but at several meetings, people in the audience stand up and they have a concern and something that they would like to see addressed in the community. I would only say this, is you can always come to every council meeting and voice your concern. I think, that's not discouraged at all, but I would encourage you to contact the village office or the DPW direct. You can do it by telephone, you can do it by email via the citizen contact form that's on the website. And if you see a pothole, if you see some debris that needs to be cleaned up, we don't really encourage the social media reporting method, but it was effective with the graffiti in the park, but we don't always have the opportunity to monitor social media. But if you contact us, the office directly or through there, we'll get to things sooner than waiting for a regular council meeting in order for us to take action. So that's all. Just a matter of we can be a little more efficient in that way if we have the information rather than waiting until the next council meeting. And then, because tomorrow, our administrative staff will have a meeting and we'll say what was talked about in last night's council meeting, what action that we weren't aware of needs to be taken care of. And so we'll talk about these very things that were reported here. But I can assure you that if Brian Clausen had mention of some issue on a street, a sidewalk, or whatever, he's going to take care of it probably before even that council meeting that's reported at. So that's all, just a matter of courtesy.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gildner.
I do have one issue tonight that requires council action, and that is an appeal was made to a response made by the village in response to a FOIA request. Hannah Matson made a FOIA request, I'm not exactly sure when, and I'm not going to read it in its entirety, but in essence, it was requesting that the village provide all communications between Mr. Delaney and certain members of certain individuals between a period of time. And some of those individuals were members of council and some were members of the public. That went to the village clerk, as it should be. She contacted me to get some direction and some plan in terms of how to respond to that, and a response was given. and an appeal of that response has been made, and I'll explain how that works. But with respect to the nature of the FOIA request, again, it requested these communications between a period of time, and it was broad-based. It was not limited or specific to a particular topic or issue or item. It was broad-based. Although I think administration and myself read it to really pertain to the Planning Commission recommendation and filling that appointment. So the village, so that everyone understands, you all have email through a village-provided email. And the clerk went and was able to compile all of those communications. And those were included in the response. And to be very clear, what she provided was not just those communications pertaining to the appointment on the Planning Commission, but to all communications between Mr. Delaney and those specific individuals for that period of time. Secondarily, I contacted Mr. Delaney and asked that he provide me those same communications on his personal cell phone, indicating, his text messages or whatever the case may be. And he provided those, and those were also included in the response. Now, I did not inspect Mr. Delaney's phone. I didn't ask to see it. I'm not going to impound it because, frankly, I don't think a court would ever do that anyway. It was his personal cell phone. I took the information that he provided, no questions asked. I gave that to the clerk. That was provided in response to Ms. Matson's FOIA request. Now, what happens under FOIA is if someone disagrees with the response that's given, they can file an appeal. And that appeal is considered received by council as of tonight's meeting. Okay? And you all have 10 days to act on that appeal. Okay? So you need to do something with it tonight because you're not going to have another meeting within 10 days. The item for you to decide is whether you sustain the response, or you agree with the response, or you take issue with the response that was given in response to this FOIA request. Those are the options available to you. As far as I'm concerned, I gave the best advice I could to the village. I have no reason to believe that the clerk would hold back on some of those documents. She says she provided everything during that period of time. I believe her. And as I said, I took Mr. Delaney at his word when he provided me what he provided, because there frankly isn't another way to look at your personal communication devices to see, did you short me something or not. As far as I'm concerned, we gave everything that was responsive to that request. And in fairness, Ms. Matson, through her lawyer, in addition to appealing, has made a secondary request looking for some additional information. We haven't even responded to that yet. Okay? That's not before you tonight. All that is before you is, are you as a body satisfied with the results that were given in response to this request, or aren't you? I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions?
No.
Clarify the two choices again. 'Cause
So it would be
it sounds
to-
like response and response, and I want to know.
It would be to
just delineate them a little
grant
clearer.
the appeal. To grant the appeal means that you really take issue, you find fault with the response that was given, okay? Or to deny the appeal, which is just another way of saying you don't take issue or find fault with the response that was given.
From the top, the response to us from Ms. Matson, or the response to her from
I believe the
The
response
attorney.
from Attorney Gildner
Yes.
to Ms. Matson.
Well, specifically from the village.
Okay.
So
Okay,
she
from the
submits
village.
she submits a request, we respond. She's challenging the sufficiency of that response.
Okay.
So our motion needs to be that we feel that our response was sufficient or it was not sufficient.
Essentially, those are the options.
What is the pleasure of council?
We discussed this at length. I would like to make a motion that, can you give me the options and wording again, please?
An option to grant the appeal or to deny the appeal. And what I've told you tonight, I spoke with her attorney yesterday, and I told him everything that I'm telling you. This is what we did, this is what we provided, this is how it worked. I wanted to see if in light of that, he had any questions or concerns or wished to withdraw the appeal. We had a nice conversation, but he chose not to withdraw the appeal. So it's before you to act on it.
So if I were to say that I wanted to deny the appeal, that would show that I have faith in the decision that you've made.
I think that's a fair way of putting it.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to deny the appeal of Ms. Matson.
And I will second that.
We have a motion by Brandon, support by Kyer, to deny the appeal. Is there any further council discussion desired on that? Considering the topic, is there any public comment desired on that? Ms. Watt?
Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street. I think I want to just simply say, because there's never really been an opportunity to discuss this particular topic before, so I think it's important for clarification for you guys and probably for members of the public that it's my understanding if I were to come into the township or the village or wherever and do a FOIA request, I would like some kind of, I know it's not a back and forth, but I think this is very important for the public to know. The clarification on, I cannot walk into the office and FOIA private communication with a private citizen. I can't say, I want Jerry Walker's text messages with anybody in the community. Like, I would like to FOIA Mr. Perkins' private text messages on a Tuesday with someone he had coffee with. Like, I don't really quite understand in this FOIA request how private citizens, like, that's even a thing. Like, that's Big Brother, and that's creepy, and that's crazy, and I think that everyone in this room better throw their phone in the lake immediately if that is a rule, and that is something that's legal, because that is a huge infringement on private citizens' rights, and if that is something that is even remotely legal, every citizen of this community should know that they should never text any of you for any reason at any time, because it could be FOIA'd by my neighbor. That's creepy. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment on this item? Ms. Matson.
Anna Matson, 1509 Western Valley. This is a lot of information, and it's probably going to go to a vote for me to have an extended period of time to talk, because what your attorney informed you is not exactly the process that took place. So, on February 15th, I FOIA'd all communications between Ryan Delaney and several people. I'm not going to list them out, but several people between different time frames. There's a lot of law involved here. But basically, this is the initial response that I got back from the village, late, mind you, which is a violation. It says, your FOIA request dated February 15th is granted in part and denied in part. It is denied to the extent you seek communications that do not fall within the Act's definition of public records. A public record is a writing prepared, owned, used, in the possession of, or retained by a public body in the performance of an official function. Lists out some law. Communications by public officials that do not relate to an official function are not subject to the Act. A court case was incorrectly quoted here, but then it says your request is worded so broadly that it encompasses Mr. Delaney's purely personal communications, and it is denied to that extent. It is granted inasmuch as it seeks Mr. Delaney's communications concerning his nominations for appointment to the Planning Commission. Here's the thing, in my FOIA, it never once says only to planning. That is something that staff, I guess, and maybe Mr. Delaney, I don't know. It did not come from me. I asked for all communications between certain people, and it is insinuated that it's within your official function. So everything, I mean, usually people have a means of communication. So some people you like to Facebook message with, some people you text, some people you email. So you're gonna go to that chat, you're gonna take everything from that date range, you're gonna hand it over to staff, they redact what they feel is purely personal. And mind you, Michigan law says that you have to prove that your personal communications, that a citizen's right to information is, I have to read it for you. Hold on. I have a letter that I gave the village, so I just don't want to misquote the law. So I'm going to read my initial letter to the village. So that's where I say the village did deny in part that it's only for stuff that has to do with planning. So I said, Dear Village of Holly, this is in regard to, unquote. FOIA laws allow me to gather public records which are, quote, a writing prepared, owned, used, in the possession of, or retained by a public body in the performance of an official function from the time it is created, unquote. Mr. Delaney's official function does not start and end at the appointments he makes for the Planning Commission. His official duty is more broad than this. The state of Michigan describes the president's duties in the General Law Village Act 64.1. Quote, the president is the chief executive officer of the village. He or she shall preside at the meetings of the council. The president is a voting member of the council. The president shall give the council information concerning the affairs of the village and recommend measures which he or she considers expedient, unless otherwise provided in the ordinance. So I'm going to ask that council votes to allow me to finish for an extended period.
I will entertain a motion to extend Ms. Matson's time by up to 4 minutes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
There is a motion in support. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Pryor.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries.
So continuing on, I'm reading straight from the Michigan law. Unless otherwise provided in an ordinance adopted under Section 8 of Chapter B, the president shall exercise supervision over the affairs of the village and over the public property belonging to the village. The president shall see that the laws relating to the village and the ordinances and regulations of the council are enforced. Unquote. Since Mr. Delaney's official function is also supervisory in nature and covers all affairs of the village, my FOIA was wrongfully denied in part. Any communications between the individuals listed on my FOIA and the president that have to do with any affairs of the Village of Holly and meetings of the council should have been provided. These communications are also easy enough to find that they should not be labeled too broad for FOIA. On the Michigan.gov website, it says including the specific search terms and date range in the records request will assist the public body in conducting a search and retrieval of potentially responsive documents and may thereby reduce potential costs. I gave date ranges and keywords to make the search easy. Also, I want to remind the Village of Holly that Mr. Delaney's right to privacy always comes second to a citizen's right to information. Again, that's Michigan law. Section 13 of FOIA law's exemption states, quote, information of a personal nature if public disclosure of the information would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of an individual's privacy, unquote. Again, if Mr. Delaney had any communications between himself and the individuals listed in my FOIA related to his official duty, it should have been provided. Secondly, Mr. Delaney is also intentionally leaving out information, which is a misdemeanor. Under the village's current ruling on my FOIA, he should have provided all information concerning his nominations for appointment to the Planning Commission. However, there was no information provided about Mr. Delaney's appointment of James Cascella. While I did not ask for information between those specific people, it is reasonable to assume that he spoke with other council members about this appointment like he did the rest. Furthermore, information that was provided does not appear to be complete. Ryan Matson was an active candidate for the Planning Commission for months. It is reasonable to assume that more than one text message would have mentioned his name. I want to make one thing clear. I only want transparency and accountability, which is exactly what the current president campaigned on. I am using my rights given to me by the state to be an informed citizen. Michigan Freedom of Information Act states I am, quote, entitled to full and complete information regarding the affairs of government, unquote. Too many decisions are being made behind closed doors and out of the public eye, which directly goes against my rights. I offered to give an extension before it came to this point, but obviously that didn't happen. So that's more of the full story. So it was actually denied in part. It wasn't just all granted and everything given to me. After that letter, I don't know who in the village, because it wasn't signed or dated, but someone in the village sent me a letter saying that the village did their job and handed over everything. I agree with that. But what I don't agree with is I got probably 5 screenshots of text messages from Mr. Delaney that only had to do with planning. That is the issue at hand here. And for people to say it's an invasion of privacy, this is Michigan law. And I'm sorry if you don't understand it, but that's not my job to educate. So that's why you have an attorney. The FOIA law is like 6 pages, just read it, and you'll understand. And another thing too, think about Kwame Kilpatrick. He literally got FOIA text messages. This has happened before. It's not new. It's the law. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Shield.
Yeah, Ryan Shield, 320 LeGrand Street. Mr. Perkins, or not Mr. Perkins, Mr. Delaney, seeing that this is pertaining to you, shouldn't you abstain from the vote?
Council?
No, I don't think so. This is it's a decision that is made. The response was from the village. The appeal is made to the governing body. In this case, it involves you, but the response was not your response. It came from the village.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Barnes.
Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. I haven't taken the time to do the kind of research that Mrs. Matson has done. I have looked a little bit into FOIA, and my understanding is that FOIA is not to be used as a fishing net to go and just blanket do a fishing expedition to find out whether or not your public official may or may not have done something that you think maybe they did on the side, on the sly, you're not sure. You have to have reasonable concern, and you have to have specificity. In my understanding, she was not super specific on her FOIA. It was just a general, you're going to give me all of your communications between these people. And that infringes on some of our rights as public citizens. She doesn't know what we've spoken to you about that may or may not have been private. I know when I reach out to you, it's always, do you have time to speak? And then we speak in person. I don't generally text you things back and forth. I don't generally text any of you things back and forth. We meet in person, right? That's what we do. I think that's true for a lot of cases in the small town. And to come out and say that you have withheld information when our council is stating that you haven't, when we have in good faith elected you to your position and we have seen you enact your position in good faith, I think it's a little disingenuous. We don't know what you have or haven't withheld, but I would assume, based on the integrity that I know you from, that you haven't. I have the privilege of knowing you for a long time. Mrs. Matson doesn't. I would hope that she would then defer to our council, who is unbiased, who has had a say in this, who has said this is the proper way to handle this. Because our village council, who I've dealt with in person, Believe me, they're not here to protect any of you guys, and they're not here to protect any of us. They're here to protect the village and make sure that things are handled in the proper procedure. It's not about protecting one person over another. So when the village council says this is the proper way, having my experience with them, I take a lot of comfort in that. And I am comfortable with the information that has been provided as it is, but I'm not in her shoes, so I mean, she's more than welcome to continue her expedition on this, but should it be a fishing expedition? I don't know.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. We have a motion and support to deny Ms. Matson's appeal to the village's response to her FOIA request. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Heyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Ms. Bigger, do you have anything to add to your written report?
Unfortunately, I do. I just want to say that the public hearing we have scheduled on April 25th, because I had to publish it in the paper, it will still be 7 o'clock, even though you guys voted to move all the meetings to 6. I had to publish it last Sunday in order for enough time to pass by law. So it will be at 7 o'clock on April 25th. That's Tuesday in this room, just for the public hearing. Also, our budget study sessions are April 29th, just a reminder, April 29th at 9 a.m. and May 6th at 9 a.m. That's all.
Thank you very much. Board and commission updates and council comments. Ms. Kyer.
For parks, this weekend we will be having our parks cleanup. It'll be focused on Waterworks Park. We're going to be clearing a bunch of brush from around the riverways. We would appreciate anybody who come out, and if you have any hand tools, they'd be much appreciated. There is no power there, so we will not be able to have power tools. There will be some dumpsters that the DPW is going to come out, and time will be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that is pretty much it. We also will be having a bird walk on Earth Day that'll be headed by Chris Summers, who is on our Parks Board, and that will again be at Lakeside Park. So you can go out and look at all the birds.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kinnaman.
First of all, Mr. Summers has amazing information on birds. I've been to a parks meeting where he did a presentation, and he is very knowledgeable. Planning Commission voted to approve an Airbnb in Battle Alley. It's above Fenton, not Fenton. It's Apothecary, but Tinsman Farms. Thank you, Tinsman Farms, Apothecary. It's above there, and they do have another apartment they may bring online later. The April 29th meeting, I will be absent. It's pickup day from Michigan Tech, so I will be a long ways from here. But I would like to put in a request that I have brought up every year, that HIA be included in this budget. For a simple amount as small as $3,000. I think part of that is our long-term agreement that municipalities have signed that includes a statement that we will be financially supporting the organization. So I would, and I know that it was removed during the 2008 recession. I would like to see that reconsidered. And then on the 28th, that's a Friday, the Chamber is having a spring bowling extravaganza, at Holly Lanes. I have tickets available. They're in my office. So come and see me, and they're $25 a person, and it's going to be a fun evening. That includes bowling, shoes, pizza, pop. There will also be a cash bar and various forms of raffle prizes. I think that, well, that's April. That's in like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I have tickets for that. So come and be a part of that. Once again, the Moose is having ribbon cutting the 27th at 11 o'clock. And watch for them to give you more information about the public event. We do have another ribbon cutting that will be on Thursday the 20th at noon, and that is for Fur Babies, the new pet supply store in Battle Alley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam President Pro Tem.
The American Legion is now collecting donations for poppies, which are used throughout the year to help veterans in need. And then I am now accepting donations at my house for the next month until May 31st at 414 Oakland. You can do a porch drop. For Lansing's Freetail store, which is run by Mike Carl, the founder of Cardboard Profits. Everything in this store is free to the homeless and those in need. They can shop with dignity. They need clothing of all sizes for adults, infants, and children, feminine hygiene products, contraceptives, purses, backpacks, socks, underwear, kid toys, holiday relevant gifts. And there is a special request. There's a high demand right now for men's jeans of all sizes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Perkins.
HPC has not met, and I have nothing else.
Mr. Harrington.
Hi, I met as scheduled on the first Thursday of the month. On June 9th, we have the Teen Block Party going on. They are going to be selling popcorn, and on June 10th, they are attempting to sell popcorn for kids, fundraiser for the Pride Day Assembly downtown also. And then they're also trying to walk in the parade as members on May 19th or 29th for the Memorial Day parade.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to add except to say I hope everyone had a very pleasant Easter, and I will see you all on May 9th. Well, the 25th. The first time I'll see you on the 25th.
And then
If there-
May and on will be 6 p.m.
Correct. Yeah, 6 p.m. Unless there's anything else, the meeting is adjourned.
April, you need winter coats?
Yeah, absolutely.
Girl, you know I got babies, so.